This is part 2. Nothing huge, just good solid content. And we have Daloise here, who it's been a while. That's pretty funny because I'm seeing guys that I haven't seen in a long time, and I thought they were not dead, but like out of full tilt 5-10 game. With my guess, like that was, from what I remember, is pretty big bum hunter, so he must have seen that guy at the table, and he must be bum hunting him. Now I'm getting re-raised, and I'm out of position on the under the gun against the button. That deep, over 200 big blinds, like 220 big blinds. I'm certainly not looking to like play that for stacks in these positions. I don't think I'm ever in good shape. With that said, sometimes I would 4-bet expecting to get called a lot or just take down the pot. But since I don't think Eagle's gonna expect me to like call it out of position with Ace King, I think I'm gonna do it and play a post flop and basically do some moves post flop, see what happens, you know. And I think I'm very likely to check raise that. And now I'm gonna lead 2 streets, I think. I go check and hope he bluffs, but I don't want like a check back, and I do want to protect my hand when he has like not so good a hand. So I think leading is better because he's gonna be calling 2 streets with basically any ace, I think, because I might be bluffing a lot. I know he's bluffing if I check quite a lot, but I do think he's gonna be checking back to because when he checks back the flop, I expect him to have like something like a pair of 9s or something like that very often, and he might call 1 street on the turn if he has like, I don't know, 9-10 with 10 of spades and any end that looks like that, any like, I don't know, king queen with a spade, yeah, any like gutter with a spade or pair with a spade. And I think he checks those back, and I don't want to give him free card. And I think I do have 2 streets of value if I lead against ace queen anyway. I'd rather lead and like check call or check raise, which would be overplaying my hand since he could himself have flush quite some time, or like ace 9 or ace 5. So, and here it's an easy 2 street bet value. So yeah, I'd rather lead the turn, which I'm gonna do with a lot of hands too. Like if I do myself have like an open ender like queen 10 suited or like king queen with a spade or something like that, I'm gonna be leading the turn for sure, and maybe the river sometimes. So that's why with our dynamic, I'm pretty sure I have 2 streets of value against basically any single ace that he has. And if he has an ace, very often an ace suited, so he's not gonna have a spade a lot with his to go with his ace along with his ace. So, and I don't want him to, I know if he has like, I don't know, ace deuce suited here, I do think he's gonna check back the turn 2 quite a lot, just not to get check raised, because that would be a good spot for me to check raise. So all in all, it's very better play to dunk lead. Yay me! But he folded, so it's useless. But, I did not give a free card, and maybe I would have lost the pot if it went check and a spade fell. You don't know these things. These things happen sometimes. Maybe not to me because I run very good, but to you at home, it happens. It's been running for almost an hour now, and I'm probably in the second part of my video. So welcome to part 2, guys. And I'm probably around 12 minutes late saying that. So welcome to part 2 late. I hope it's gonna be as interesting as part 1, because part 1 was really interesting, I think. And if you did not find it interesting, you can go fuck yourself. Thank you. I hope I'm not gonna get like, oh, never mind. Now I don't have anything to say. As soon as I talk about uh, getting interesting. If that guy 3-bets me small here, I'm gonna 4-bet him much more as a bluff than with the basically the same ace-9 suited spot I talked about earlier, but in the first part. But now it's much more as a bluff, and I'm just looking to take initiative and like 4-bet, and then I think he's gonna be calling very often with these stacks, the 4-bet, because that's just how they play. But I'm gonna be winning the pot quite a lot on the flop. And now I really think he's full of shit pretty often, seriously. I hate my life. If I had any, that's not something that I see from these guys a lot, like 5-betting, but I do see a lot of 5-bet folding when they do it. Like they don't 5-bet that much. So this range is not that weak. And he's definitely playing his monster just like that. If I had any hand that would have some decent equity against it, like queens and up, ace king range, I would probably shove here because it's a very good spot for me to 6-bet bluff, I think. But with my king 8 off, if I'm called, I'm just way too crushed, just an horrible equity end, so I just fold. I hate myself for folding that because I do think he's full of shit quite some time, but still, since he does it with all of his nuts as well, when you think you have like a read that he's full of shit and then you shove and then he just had aces, I would hate myself for like 2 days, not 2 days, but like 2 hours for that, for doing that, especially in front of you guys. But yeah, I have a feeling it was pretty weak, but my hand was just not good enough. If I had my ace-9 suited that I had earlier, I would have shoved that, I think. The ace-9 suited. Yep. I would have shoved that. Now Veggie Love, that's weird because I have him as a short stack. That's like my short stacking node, but he's funny short stack because he starts as a short stack, but he's not rat holing. He's like when he doubles up, he stays at the table most of the time. And I think he kind of knows what he's doing when he has like 40 and 50 big blinds, which is kind of tricky because I'm not that good at playing at 40 big blinds. I'd say I'm pretty good, but not that much. And if someone is using a very optimal strategy at 40 and 50 big blinds, he might just crush me. But now that he's reloaded to that many big blinds, I'm better than him. So one thing done. And what the hell is that? He like insta snap 4-bet, which is weird, and I don't know what to make of that. But I certainly don't want to shove because I don't have enough to win. And I can just call in position. Even if my end is really weak, if he has some weak end himself, like my odds are way too good pre-flop, and if he has some wakey hands himself, I don't expect him to go on a big post-flop bluff of multi-barrels. And now he's just leading for the pot, which is weird. I think I can call one street, hope to hit my 5-outer and get paid, or if he has like ace king, which he's gonna have quite some time here, I do expect him to give up 100% on turn. Now he shoves, and I'm just done. Maybe he does not have ace king that much though, because like he's min raising, but he might have even like 2 random cards just playing very weirdly, and he might have aces and kings as well. So I just think that if he is not strong, he's not 2-barreling, so I could call one street and then sometimes spike my 5-outer and stack him when he is strong. So maybe pre-flop call, I think there's no other option because it's just 60, and I thought you flopped the set on me there. And he might just be joking in chat. He said he had ace-ace. Whatever. He might have had ace-ace as well. I just never saw him do that move before, and it was really weird. Here I'm gonna bet my gutter. Hope to find two folds. Can certainly represent a lot of things well, and I think black's one is gonna be just check folding most of the time here, unless he has like ace-jack. And against that guy, I don't think I'm gonna multi-barrel. I think I'm gonna. He's not a good guy, so I'm not really worried about representing anything. I'm just worried about him folding his end. With that said, on the turn, I don't think he's folding a queen like ever. Most fishes just don't fold top pair. He might fold a jack, but I'm not even sure. And he's not folding a draw as well. And I think I can make him fold his draws on the river. If he checks again, I'm just gonna fire out a super small bit. I know I'm just representing like nothing at all, but if he has nothing at all, his nothing is probably better than mine. And since there are so many draws on the flop and basically everything missed, I think firing like half the pot here is very profitable just to make him fold his nothing at all. But he did have two pairs, top pair that turned into two pairs. But I'm really comfortable with my play, and I do think I had to fire that that river bet for sure, just to make him fold all of it. Maybe I could have made it a bit smaller, even like 80, but at 80 I was a bit worried about getting called by like maybe ace 10 or ace high flush draw. I just want to see where I'm at. I was just curious because it's $80, so I went with 120, and he had that pair, so no problem. I think I played that one pretty perfectly. But yeah, that's something pretty important, is that since I'm against a really bad player, I'm really not worried, like I said, about representing anything. I wouldn't make that bluff against anyone who has half a brain, basically, because it's super obvious what I'm doing. But this guy, like, if he has a missed draw, he's gonna play it exactly that way, and he's just looking at his own cards, not at what I could be representing. He probably doesn't even know what representing means. So I just have to concentrate myself on his cards and not on any like player dynamic or what he's thinking or whatever. What are his cards is definitely the most important thing in that kind of spot. It's not going that well. I'm kind of down, but not that much. But me. I did lose quite a lot on that queen 8 weird end, but I think it's fine. Like pre-flop, like I said, every time I flipped up like two pair at trip, it just I just know where I'm gonna be at post flop, so no problem. The flop call might be a bit borderline, especially now if I know that he's doing that more often with like aces. I'm certainly not calling, but like I said, if he had air, I expect him to give up every single time. I do have some very good ends, but I'm not up because I'm not good, basically. Here I'm gonna be betting just because it's a really dry board, so I don't expect him to raise me a lot, even at 200 big blinds deep with stacks, with size, like stack sizes that he's raising me more with. And now I'm just super happy to see that happen. Oh, and that is sick. Just wait a second. I'm just gonna time bang just to make them believe I do have a decision with like, I don't know, ace king or queens. I'm certainly going all in over the top of that, since their range are. I only have 7 seconds of time bang, so I'm just shoving, hoping nobody has aces. Don't snap! Yes! Okay, I'm good for 200 big blinds and good for 100. Running it twice. One time. Yeah, 2 times. Yay! I win twice. Pretty standard, I think, with aggressive dynamic between us 3 players. I just did not want to shove and see the 200 big blinds guy snap me. Back to the 10-8 end. Yeah, I'm betting the flop basically. If the board was like, let's say 10-9 suited, like 10-9 of spades with the 3 of diamonds, I would check all that like very often for the same reason that I talked about in part 1 a lot, that he's gonna raise me with a lot of things on such a dry board, and it's gonna leave me in a very shitty spot at 200 big blinds deep. But now, since he knows he's not representing much when he's raising that board, there are just not that many hands who can raise that board and like give me such a hard time because it's so dry, and I do have the initiative, and I can represent like the overpair, and he cannot, and stuff like that. I expect him to call, and I think I'm just crushing his calling range on the flop, so it's obviously a bet. And on the turn, I'm betting again, basically for value. I'm getting called by better, like every single time he has better than me, he's gonna call me. But I really don't like checking, because if I check, I do have to check call. Yahoo! I do have to check call anyways if he has better, and he's probably betting like Jack 10 and up on the turn for value himself. So I prefer taking the bet myself to make him pay if he has like 8s or 9s, something like that, like any pair, like ace-5 or something like that. He's gonna call a lot because of the turn is such a good card to barrel, basically. And now I do have a boner, and I am gonna 4-bet. Basically exactly what happened earlier, and he snap calls. That's more what I was looking for with my king 8, someone who snap calls like that. And when they do snap call, they have ace queen quite a lot, so I'm just gonna bet and hope he has a queen, which is not ever folding against me, I think. Check, and he folds. Too bad. And it's exactly what I was talking about as a spot with my king 8 when he ended up pretty standard pair of 6s here. When he ended up 5-betting me. Do I have value? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Not against a guy who's not capable of like hero calling that much, in my opinion. Oh, he bets pretty big. That's weird. Weird. I think he bets a jack on the turn most of the time. I don't think he bet a 10 that big. He never has a 9. So the only hand I'm basically worried about here is king queen and queen 8 and 7-8, basically. A straight, I think, with that sizing. And I think he's gonna be trying a random bluff sometimes because the action just went check, check, check. So I do think I have to call. And he had king queen. But yeah, I think his range is pretty polarized with that sizing on the river. He never ever has a 10 to bet that big. I think he's not capable of making a big value bet with a 10 here, that's for sure. Never has a jack because I expect him to bet the turn with that. Never has a 9 as well. So he's left with a lot of air that just thinks he's going to be able to win the pot, or straights, which he had. Boo. Or maybe pocket 10. He's going to have that as well quite some time. Here, pretty standard call pre-flop, pretty standard call on the flop. Interesting turn. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about the aces. When I 4-bet my king 8 earlier, I know he's gonna be doing that a lot, like snapping my 4-bet and then folding to a lot of flops. Of course, now I hoped he had flopped something, but looks like he did not. Here, I don't think I have any other choice than to call the turn as well. And the river is gonna be a close one. I do hope he checks, basically. And I don't think I have any value to get when he checks. I don't think he's check calling with king jack, and king jack is like the very hand behind my hand, and I don't think he's calling that. He might call with king jack, but it's a pretty long shot. I'm not sure I want to value that. Wait a second. He's definitely calling with king jack. But maybe not. He's definitely playing ace king and aces that way, I think, and he's gonna be like checking the river a lot there. He might check the river with full houses as well. I'm just gonna check back, I think. Yeah, jacks. I don't think he's calling a bet with that, but I might be wrong. It might be a bit on the weak side, but since I'm a bit worried about getting check raised here, I ended up doing the weak play. Basically, for him to call my river bet, he would have to. I should have bet like 200 or something like that, something weird like that. Definitely better than not betting, I think. Here in 4 players, since these two guys know, especially Part-2, I expect him to like check raise me a lot because they know that I'm gonna be really aggressive in the multi-way pot when everybody's checked to me. I think I'm just gonna give up. Maybe try to steal the turn if nobody has an interest in it. But yeah, I should have fired like 200 because with 200 I think he's never check raising. He's never like he's too worried of me doing that as kind of a level and then not going through it. Here is Jack. Even 200 big blind deep. Ace Jack of suits pretty borderline with these positions. I think I'd rather just fold. Any ace suit and anything that plays better than Ace Jack at 200 big blind deep, I'm certainly playing it. But yeah, Ace Jack of suit is just one of the worst hands. If I had been on the cutoff or the button, I would have called probably, but not there. And here with Part-2, check calling the turn, I basically expect him to call me with any pair on the river seriously because he knows I'm super aggressive and I'm gonna be bluffing a lot there. And he does have a lot of 7s and not a lot of 2s, but a lot of 7s in his range that he's playing exactly like that. Especially with like his timing on the river of slight hesitation in a check. I think that's gonna be a 7 a lot, or like total air. I think he says me I have straight flush. He did not want me to bet, but I do think he's gonna call the bet. I was wrong about the small hesitation. Probably just hesitated because we like I don't know, he dropped something on the floor. But yeah, I don't think he's folding that because he knows that I'm too aggressive and he knows that I'm likely to like bet the turn with like any diamond as a semi bluff and then bet the river again if I have like any diamond missed or any air basically because nobody looked like they had any interest in that pot. So yeah, probably would not fold. Still, we will never know, but certainly not king queen. I think it's too big just psychologically for him to fold. Here, pretty tricky. I think what I'm gonna be doing here is I'm gonna be betting. I don't want to check and like give a free card because I might very well have the best hand, but it's not gonna hold very often. I don't expect him to play me back a lot if he has nothing because there's a fish in there and he knows that I do need to have some kind of hand to play against the fish there. I did have the backdoor which played in my favor to bet there, and there are so many cards that are like on some turns I'm gonna be able to make him fold like a pair of 7s. Like if a king falls on the turn, I'm just firing turn river, turning my hand to a bluff basically. So that's a good board to like 3-barrel and win the pot very often, turn my hand into a bluff. Now, since he could have some gutters, any draw, basically anything, I end up checking because I don't think I have any value by betting and my hand is so strong and I don't want to bet and get raised off it. Now with 100 bets, that's pretty much a very good situation for me, but a very, very bad river card. Because that just completes the flush draw. If he bets big, I'm out of here. If he bets small, I think I do find a call. Because, like, basically his value hands on that river are going to be a flush and a 7. And I think he bets big with both the flush and the 7. And here we go, he bets super big, so basically a shove. And I think he's doing the old trickery of, like, timing and then shoving with his flush. Hopefully did not show a bluff and make me look foolish. But yeah, if he would have bet small, I expect him to turn over stuff like a missed gutter on the flop, like ace 4, ace 5, like king 4, king 5, not like some random things that would have been to the river like that. I don't think, like if he had like something like 8, 9 on the flop, he's playing like that up to the river, but he's not betting big on the river ever. And I think he's just checking the river with this, like the scary 7 completing and the flush completing. So yeah, all of basically his entire value range on that river is gonna bet big because he either has trips or a flush. So when he does bet small, I expect to see some random cards quite a lot. So that's pretty much it. he ended up betting super big. I think prior to that, the end is pretty standard. I could have checked the flop, but for the reasons I've mentioned, I slightly prefer betting it because I just want to like keep my and now that's the old trickery of these guys, these Australians, of betting like super small on the flop. You know, he's calling my checkers. I'm gonna 2-barrel for sure, and probably 3-barrel, trying to take him off like basically any pair that is not a trip. I think I can do that, especially when the 8 falls, and I can now represent 9-10 on top of a jack or a flush draw or something like that. He calls 2 times. I'm no longer sure, actually, because 9-10 is no longer betting that river. So for me to, he has to believe that I do have a jack, like always here. I think I'm just gonna give up. I think he has a jack himself too often. If he bets, he certainly has a jack, like basically every single time, and checks back. I'm not sure I could have bet him off of that, just because of the river. If the river is not the 7, I'm certainly firing again, and that was my plan from the beginning, basically. And if I do it, obviously it's a jackpot. But yeah, my plan from the beginning was to make him fold something like that. Now that guy's gonna have a 10 a lot, but 9's alright. He's just completely doing anything. No 9! Yoo-hoo! Perfect spot. Probably my image against that guy paid off a bit, but I don't even know if he was aware of that. But yeah, like I said, from the beginning, that was my very plan, to make him fold something like queens, which I think he's gonna have quite a lot. Since he's from under the gun and he bet the flop so small, I think he's gonna bet the flop just a bit bigger if he has a jack, just because he does have a trip. But now, like I said, the 8 was a very good card for me, since it did give me a gut shot, plus the possibility of me having 9-10 and I'm playing just like that, which is gonna be often enough just to like add some fold equity to my 3-barrel. But when the 7 falls, I absolutely need a jack here to fire big on the river, and since too many draws, too many stuff I've missed, I think he's gonna look me up a lot with queens, just because of the flush draw that missed. I would have to, if I was like, to be sure to make him fold a jack here, I would have had to bet super big, like basically the pot or a slight overbet. But the thing is, it is dangerous that he himself has a jack, and he's gonna play basically all of his jack, apart from the flop bet thing. But it's just a small factor for me in trying to make, like, believing that he has a pair more than a jack, but he still does have a lot of jacks in his range, especially since I don't have a blocker myself. So I don't want to bet super big, because I'm gonna like run into a jack way too often here, and I don't want to bet too small either, because I'm gonna get looked up by pretty much anything. If the river is like a 6 or something like that, if I do complete my flush or whatever, I certainly am betting to make him fold all of what I felt was more likely to be a pair than a jack. But here with the 7, like I said, falling, I do not feel that good about it. Pretty special board here. I think I'm gonna check call turn and river most of the time here, because on the flop there are just so many straight draws. It's like infinite proportion of like straight draws and gutters and whatever on that specific board, especially like the queen 10, jack 10 stuff. And he's gonna be firing turn plus river basically 100% of the time with those. So I think my hand is gonna be, I really don't like that card, actually. I would have much preferred a like deuce of hearts here. My biggest hope basically is that he has a jack himself, like jack 10 or queen jack, and he's gonna check back. If he bets big, I think, alright, queens. And then again with queens, I don't think he is firing the river that often, even if it's a break on the river for value. I don't think he expect me to call down with like that ace jack. But yeah, and I do find it weird that it did not 3-bet me with this queens, probably because of the deepness of our stacks, and he did not want to face a 4-bet. But I think that's a slight mistake from him, because I'm pretty happy facing a 4-bet with that and with like that deep, because I just want to build. If I have queens in position in the blind battle, I just want to build a pot. It's just way too powerful. So it's probably just some balance on his part, but I think queens is just too good to balance there. I don't really like his pre-flop play, and I did not expect to see that as an. But yeah, back to my plan of check calling turn and check calling river. I don't think I'm gonna go for that plan if I don't have a spade. I think it's just too thin if I don't have any spade. But here with the jack of spades, would have been better if it was the ace of spades. The ace of spades. The ace of spades. But yes, with the jack of spades, if I do not have the best hand, it's gonna I'm gonna river the best hand quite some time. And the thing was, like I said, on that board there are, I'm not gonna name them all, but like 8-10, like Jack 10, Queen Jack, Queen 10, 5-6, 6-8. I am gonna name them all. Basically, all of these hands play exactly the pre-flop and the flop that way. And when the flush completes, he's gonna use that card to try and bluff me on both turn and the river pretty much every single time. So a card that is a spade on the river, I'm like pretty happy to see those. Because I do have a pretty high spade, and it's gonna give me the best card as well. And if it's a brick, I expect him to refire with his air, like I said, 100% of the time. And he has way too much air in his range. I think my ace jack is gonna be good very, very often. So I think like my check calling 2 streets here as a plan is very, very sexy. But he ended up having queens, which is kind of weird. He played it super fine post flop. I just did not expect to see that pre-flop. Here, a pair of sixes against Moirams, my French friend who just turned pro yesterday. Congratulations to Moirams. I'm gonna check the flop and bet small on turn, trying to get some small value. Here, I'm gonna bet my pair of tens for value, even though there's a 4-string on the board. Just since, oh no, the flush, bastard. Just since I am betting like 100% of my range on the turn, I think, and he is aware of that, so he's gonna call me with like a pair of nines and stuff like that on the turn a lot. So I'm just betting my ace 10 for value against a guy who's capable of reading boards and reading my tendencies of betting that turn pretty much every time when he does check back the flop. Now I could go for like a gigantic check raise, because king queen is in my range and it's not really in his range. But I think that it is semi-suicidal. He might have king queen sometimes actually, but not often. And I'm not sure if he's folding a queen basically. And because I'm me, he's gonna like talk himself into a call pretty often if he has a queen. And I do expect him to have a queen very, very often here. Like basically the only hand I'm check raising big the river here is either a bluff or king queen. And he knows it, but I think he's gonna like talk himself into a call too often. Like I said. So yeah. And he has a queen when he bets. If he does not have a queen, basically he never has like total air. He's not calling the turn with total air to see what happens or anything like that. And if he has a queen, he's playing just like that, so he's gonna have a queen very often. Here I am raising, which would be kind of counterintuitive with what I've just said about playing a bit deeper and stuff like that. But the thing is, against that guy, I expect him to call in position a lot, and I just crush his call in position range, especially when he like min raises his button. So it's like pure value. And if he 4-bets, I'm probably just folding, unless he like min 4-bets like that guy earlier. But yeah, it's just pure value because I just crush pre-flop range, and the fact that I'm suited is gonna make my hand very, very more playable with that deepness, stack deepness post-flop. And our tables are breaking up, and we're three-handed, and yep. I'm gonna play some three-handed, not that much, and see how it works out. Pretty well timed though. I did want to make that video a two-part video, and I think I'm kind of getting to the end of part 2 right now. So I'm gonna play like 5-10 minutes of three-handed, see what happens. Have a nice seafood dinner and see what happens. Here I'm defending for sure and never re-popping that. And I flop nothing. Not a good board once again too. Dunk lead on, I think. I could check raise that. But I'm not going to. I think that was one of. I did talk a lot and about a lot of things and a lot of different stuff, but I think that was one of among the most interesting videos I've made alone, for sure. A lot of interesting stuff happening. I might have made some mistakes. I tend to do a bit more, many more mistakes when I am talking a lot while playing, because sometimes I'm just gonna level myself, like talking whatever, and then doing something that I would never do otherwise, just because I'm talking and I want to do something special or whatever. But I think I played fine for the most part, except some maybe small errors, small mistakes that I did mention. I pretty much mentioned every small mistake that I've made, I think. Boo boo. Allez, boo boo. Fais-le. Oh, that's interesting. Here, with the dynamic that I do have against, I could 4-bet and go broke, but I'm not even sure if he goes broke with jacks, and I'm not even sure he's repopping jacks for the. And I do have position. Out of position, I would be more inclined to like 4-bet and then get it in, because I think he does sometimes get it in with worse, because that's a good spot for me to 4-bet as a bluff. Yeah, cold 4-bet as a bluff. But with queen, it's just gonna play so well in position. I'm just gonna take the flop in position and see what happens. If he barrels this whole stack, basically it's a really shitty spot for me, of course. But now, for now, I still don't really have much of a decision. It's a call, and I'm calling with most of my range, and he knows it, so he could be barreling off. With the deuce of hearts turning. You guys don't know how happy I am to see that turn check. I did not want to face 3 barrels there. I don't think I have much value here by betting. And sometimes he's gonna be checking like aces or kings, so I'm just gonna pot control that and river. The absolute nuts, unless he has 10s, in which case if he has 10, that video is gonna end very abruptly. I'm warning you. But yeah, I'm gonna pot control that on the river, because basically against his whole range, I just have one street of value to get. I bet's pretty small. I'm just gonna shove and hope he talks himself into a call. Like, I'm representing queen so badly. I'm just gonna wait. Now, I think it's a timing thing a lot. And I'm just representing queens so badly here that I might be turning like jacks into a bluff here. Since he did not bet big on the river, his likelihood of having queens is really not big, and he knows that. So he knows that, like, the way the end played out, I'm gonna have queens so often here, and I might be turning other middle pairs into a bluff sometimes here. And I know Muharrams is capable of doing that, and he knows me very well, and I know him very well, and I think he's gonna make that hero call sometimes, because it's just basically so obvious what I have. And now he's talking on my MSN, probably insulting me. I'm gonna see what he says. Carl. Oh, fuck you. That's what he says. So he knows. Oh! Ah! He knows I could be bluffing, and he did think a lot about maybe calling, because he, like, with his river sizing, he never has queens there. Never, ever, ever. Unless he's trying to level me or whatever. The fact is not that I'm worried about him having queens, but I do want him to be aware of the fact that I know that he does not have queens, thus making me like making it possible that I shove as a bluff here pretty much any pair that I would have called pre-flop, and I do call pre-flop with a lot of pairs there. And with the backdoor flush, it increases the likeliness that I'm bluffing just a bit more, because I could be sometimes trying to represent some weird flush. And now he's talking to me in MSN and telling me, fuck you, what did you have? But in French. Yeah, fuck you, what did you have? Impossible that you're turning 9-9 into a bluff like this. So he's aware that I could be doing that, which is why I just overshoved. Against some other players, I'm just never ever getting called here. So I would make like a smaller raise just to have him make a frustrated call, basically. But here, against ones, and I flop a set against Boo Boo. Against a guy who's just 2-barreling and maybe 3-barreling most of his range, I might call down. If I had a like ace jack, I would certainly call down here with my ace high, but not that time, I think. Since he is 2-barreling, like basically 100% of his range, I'm gonna wait for the turn, because when he does have air, I think like that's how they play. They 2-barrel pretty much everything, and I expect him to have air quite some time. So, and since I'm not sure he like calls a check raise on the flop and a big bet on the turn and big bet on the river with a lone ace there with such a like dry board that I'm pretty much never bluffing, I'd rather wait for the turn to gain another bet if I am. Like, if he is bluffing with pretty much anything, and now that's the worst river I've seen in my life. Fuck my life. I do have to bet. Not so small that he's gonna be raising as a bluff, but not so big that he's never calling with worse, so I think 290 is optimal. But it's really, really thin. It's weird to say that of a bet with a set, but it's really, really thin for value. It's a really thin value, and yeah, basically he always has a flush when he does that. Unless he's doing that as a bluff, and I don't think so. And it did not turn out well. That did not turn out well. Really, really not. Yeah, coming back on that hand. I decided, like I say, to not check raise a flop. Go for a check raise turn, because I pretty much never take this line with sets, and I think he's kind of aware of that. I'm more likely to check raise on the flop. Well, I'm telling me that there's no way I have queen ever, so he was putting me on either a flush, I don't know which flush, or 8-8 or 9-9, which is kind of funny. But yeah, anyway, I think he is aware of the fact. I think they are pretty good end readers, those weird Australians, and they pretty much live on their end reading skills, because they just make so many like fundamental mistakes. But yeah, whatever. Since I think he expects me to check raise a set pretty much always on that type of board, and since we're 300 big blinds deep, I don't want to go too crazy with like bottom set here. If I check raise, bet big, I'm pretty much committing my whole stack. And the only things that are gonna be calling me down, I think, is like pocket 6, pocket aces, of course, ace 6, or maybe an ace with turn 2 pairs, but that's not too likely. If I did have like pocket 6s, I would have probably like check raise and big to get called down super big by pocket 4s. But now that there are not that many hands on that drive board that are gonna call down, I'm gonna check. He's giving me a pretty hard time, just situational hard time here. I'm looking, like I said, to He has an ace quite some time when he calls like the flop. I think he's calling the flop with ace high a lot of times. Could be check raising, but I don't think he's ever gonna believe me, especially when he just made a tricky play on the other table. He's gonna be thinking that I'm trying to make him pay for the play he just made to me and make the same kind of play as a check raise bluff, and I don't think I can ever call profitably there. He would have to have basically total air for me to call there, but if he has total air, I think he is betting the turn way more often than he is checking it. It is possible on pre-flop and the flop, but on turn if he has air, he's betting it almost always, in my opinion. So his ranges made ends basically. But yeah, coming back to yeah, I decided to check raise the turn because I do not want to check raise the flop that much for the reason I've mentioned. Plus, like I said, he's the type of guy who is two barreling his entire range basically. They all do that. It's really, really, really rare that I see an Australian not two barreling the turn. So if he has nothing at all, I'm gaining one more bet. And he's gonna find that suspicious. And I thought that would be a very good card to do that, because he could think that I'm turning maybe 5-6 or something like that into a bluff with a turn check raise and a big river bet very often there. So I really like the turn card to make that play of check raising and then betting the river big and being able to fold to a shove or any subsequent action. But now that's a really bad river. I did bet hoping to get called by two pairs, like ace 6, ace 7, ace 8. I think he's gonna call that, maybe 7, 8. Who's just curious and just has two pairs and think I'm full of shit. And if I check, it's basically a check fold, but he could be sometimes bluffing, but maybe not. So maybe a check is a bit better. But when I do bet against someone who's capable of making some strong moves, I don't want to bet so small that it's obvious that I'm gonna fold to a raise. So I did have to commit some chips in there. I think my sizing was pretty good, and it's such a sizing that since I do have flushes in my range with that line, and he's aware of that, it's such a sizing that if he raises, he basically always has a flush, and probably the nut flush, I think, with such a big raise, just hoping to get called by lower flush. That would be my read. Straight flush or the nut flush. It would go smaller, in my opinion, with a smaller flush. Here, another instance of re-raising basically for value, strictly for value, against a guy that I've never seen before and who just sat with a random amount and is likely to just call pre-flop with king jack, king 10, sometimes any king, any queen, and if and when I flop top pair, it's most likely to be good, and I'm likely to be dominating a lot of his ends, and the stacks are so that I can three barrel very profitably and etc. So I think re-raising pre-flop is very fine against that type of opponent. I would not ever do that against someone who is gonna 4-bet bluff me, who I think is gonna 4-bet bluff me a good percentage of the time, because his stacks are good to do so. But here, against a guy who's just open limping, I don't think he has a 4-bet bluff in his arsenal, and I think he's calling with force a lot pre-flop. So king queen is definitely a re-raise here, and I certainly don't want to get squeezed out of my hand if I call on a small blind there. So here, very easy c-bet. Here I'm gonna 3-bet that. And I do turn pretty much in nuts against that type of player. I don't want to go so big that I'm only getting called by better. If I go 220 and then bet almost 3/4 on the river as well, I think he's gonna fold even all of his pair of 8. So in that type of spot, I'm looking to go a bit smaller, 160, and then maybe just a bit more than a half pot on the river. I really don't like that river though. I might just, especially with his hesitation, don't bet the pot, please. I have to call that. I probably would have checked back. He probably has an 8. He had ace 2. That's really weird. I don't have a clue what he did. Yeah, he does not have an ace, an 8 that often with his sizing on the river. He would have bet bigger with an 8 if he used to bet it. Knew it, lucky. Nice. That just doesn't make sense. He's just a huge fish. I'm gonna tag him with my huge fish color note. But yeah, on the river I might have checked that because even though I have the best end very often, I don't see him calling with worse very often. Maybe with like a pair from 5 to 7. I probably should have bet like small on the river if it gets to me, but then again, he might have some like backdoor flush. And sometimes you're gonna see that if I bet so small on the river that it's obvious that do not have an 8, if the guy is like a fish, sometimes he's gonna just shove because he's giving me a hard time in chat. That's fun. Sometimes I'm gonna call that. I'm gonna do it just because it's fun. I'm gonna flop a gut shot just to put myself into trouble. I'm gonna dunk lead that one against Moirams, I think. Who's folding? He's not calling a lot of dunk leads. He's either folding or raising a lot of them, and he probably will see that video. And I just gave off a pretty big read that I have on him, so he's gonna adjust, and I'm gonna adjust after that. Hello, Moirams. Moirams. It's an horrible name, I know. But yeah, if I bet so small on the river just to get paid by like pair of 4s of middle pair or stuff like that, sometimes they're gonna see that I bet so small that I never have an 8, so even these fishes are just gonna go all in and then show you like random ace-4 bluff, and then you bet folded your queen 10 and you want to kill yourself for that. So, exactly. So I might have just checked back, and I'm super happy that he just bet small on the river for whatever reason. Here I'm not gonna bet just because he looked pissed, and he's probably not likely to fold anything in anytime soon. If he has a middle pair or whatever, I can never make him fold that. Against Bobu there, who's betting 45 on turn. I think I'm gonna call the turn. I have pretty good odds. I think if he's bluffing, he's giving up on the river most of the time. 140, it's certainly not a bluff there. If he had like overbet the river, I might have found a call there. But 140, I think it's a sizing that wants to get a call from my likely range of like checking and calling turn, which is middle pair, something like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it as far as all those ends. Those late ends went. Once again, not going to try to bluff that guy. For sure not one that I have the read that he's playing so weird like he just did. If he bets, I probably call. Yeah, fuck it. Yes! I'm so good. Wait, checks. They just never have anything, those weird guys. If it was a reg, he thought it would be king eye. Congratulations. It's funny when like those guys put you on a single and like no action happens and then like they put you, I knew you had exactly that. I find it funny, but I don't know if you're laughing, so I don't know if it is funny. So give me feedback on the funniness of that. If it's a reg, I'm probably not calling that because a reg is more likely to have like 8-10 with that line than nothing at all, which he's more likely to try to bluff earlier in the hand, especially when he had a gutter on the flop and then an open ender on the turn. He certainly had to bet, but against a fish, it just never have anything with check. If he has like a 10 and he decided to check, he's just gonna check by reflex most of the time. If they don't have anything, though, they figure out that's the only way that they're gonna win that pot. And now the tables have filled back up. And I think I'm gonna go for 3 parts. I'm a bit less articulated than I was at the beginning of that video. But it's going pretty well, and I think I'm gonna be able to get 3 parts out of that. Straight draw and a second pair, and I didn't feel it. What is he talking about? I love him. I have Jesus seed on him, so I'm just gonna try to play as many pots as possible against him. But yeah, it's a lot of talking. I'm getting pretty tired, physically tired of talking that much and stuff. But I think it's pretty good. It's going well, so I'm gonna stretch that for a 3rd part. And if it's just as long as that, it's gonna be a long stretch. But I'm going for 3, no matter what. And now nothing is happening like at all, obviously. And I don't remember any of the ends I've played, seriously. I just forgot everything that happened. So I can't really talk about what happened earlier as well. And yeah, that's it. So I'm just gonna hope something happens before the end of it. Now it's a battle of the fishes. Those are 2 pretty big fish. And they both fold. No, they do not both fold. That doesn't make any sense. One of them folds and one of them wins the end. I'm just gonna narrate what is going on. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm just gonna stop the video right here. Seriously, I'm just too tired. Can't think of anything. I'm just gonna make 2 longer parts. Yeah, that's fine. So that was Jiggy playing 510, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Any feedback, etc., etc. Same thing as usual in the threads. And I love you all. And I'm just gonna play that ace-9 suited before I leave. Yay! $15 gonna pay the dinner. And maybe I'm gonna waste the dinner. No. So yeah, like I said, I love you guys. Bye bye.